Another early lesson in the Bootstrap curriculum is gaining an understanding of the data types, strings, numbers, and Booleans. Be sure to have the students go through and do this in a definite discovery mode. Do not just sit there and give them all of this. Let them do that driver navigator mode where they sit down and actually, by doing error messages and trial and error, learn the things. I'm just going to go through a quick review of the 3 data types and what we learned about them, what the students will learn about them. They learned that those strings will always need to be in quotes, front and the back of those, to indicate that they're not a number. Like 42 looks like a number, but when it's in quotes now, arithmetic can't be done on that. It's now seen as a string of text in a lot of ways. There's like species. And even that date there is now in quotes, okay? A string will always evaluate to a string in Pirate. You can see the quotes stay on it. You can add a string plus a string would reevaluate to a combined string there. Okay? The next one was a number. Numbers are now not in quotes. And we learned that decimals must have a leading digit in Pirate. They can't just be naked in front. You got to have at least a 0 in front or some number in front. You can have negative numbers in Pirate and many, many digits as you need. You can have fractions as well as the decimals. And oh yeah, those decimals, they'll toggle back and forth to an improper fraction. Really cool there. And numbers evaluate to numbers, of course. You can add 2 numbers and get a number back, just like we added 2 strings and got a string on the last slide. But I just want to remind us we can't add a number and a string. Those are 2 different data types, and they will remind us we cannot do that with that operator. They either need to be 2 numbers or 2 strings. The other thing students will discover during this lesson is that they will be required to put in parentheses to show the order of operations in an expression that they are looking for if you have 2 different operators in that expression. It just doesn't automatically put it in, so they're going to be required to know what they're seeking there. Okay? The third data type is a Boolean, and whereas the first 2 have infinite possibilities as far as what values they can have, Boolean, of course, only has 2, true or false, which is like a yes-no situation. 1, 2, 0, 1s in computers, okay? Remind the students there's no quotes on these words. These are not strings, so they will not come out with quotes on them. As you can see, here's a Pirate. These are Pirate outputs. There's no quotes on the trues and the falses. They're their own data type. Okay? Here, string contains. Does Bootstrap contain boot? It does, so we get a true. But does boot constrain Bootstrap? No, so we get a false. And then I just did, is 4 less than 10? True. Is 4 greater than 10? False. Okay. Ooh, importance of a Boolean is going to become really evident to students as they get ready to program for those filtering functions and say like, oh, is a species a cat? True or false? Because the trues are going to need to be filtered into a new data set for me or a new table for me. So Booleans are going to become more and more important as we get going. And as we come back to this data set, let's take a look. We could see here that in green, right here, with the quotes, the first 3 columns, name, species, and sex, we have our strings. These are strings right here. Whereas number, our data types here are numbers for age, legs, pounds, and weeks. And in red here, you'll see the true, false, our Boolean. So our animals data set has the first 3 columns strings, and then there's 4 number columns, and then this fixed Boolean column. Why is this important? Why do we need to teach these kids the data types? Well, as they're getting to learn next, they're going to be reading contracts, and they have to identify the data types that they're going to need to be pretty automatic with this so that they can read and enter these into Pirate as they get ready to start learning some functions that are pre-made in Pirate. And then they're going to begin to learn to write their own functions and use something we call the design recipe. As they write their own functions, they got to identify the data types needed to put those into their own functions, into their domain and range, and get their own functions to operate. So that's pretty important. Hopefully this has helped you. Nice tips for the day.